This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm 34 and work as a freelance graphic designer. I moved to this quiet suburb to escape the chaos of city life. I thought a peaceful environment would help me find some inspiration. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly made up of 90s single-family homes, with overgrown yards and a small park down the street. I rented a modest house that I felt good about. Then, there was the basement. It was creaky, and I thought that was all part of the charm. I never stopped thinking about what happened down there. Everything felt normal until my third night. I was just settling in, enjoying the stillness of the house. Then I heard muffled sounds coming from the basement. It was weird. Too quiet for alarms, and too rhythmic for anything else. I thought it could just be the house settling, but the noises kept me on edge all night. I debated going down there. The next days passed slowly, but the sounds didn't stop. They got louder. I could feel the vibrations of whatever was down there trying to break through the floor. Sometimes, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Shadowy figures flitting past the basement window. Each time I turned to look, there was nothing. My heart raced, and I felt a chill. I thought I was imagining things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I sometimes thought I heard whispers calling my name. Ridiculous, right? I'd stand frozen, straining to listen. "Mark," it said, just faintly. I figured it was just the wind. But those whispers had a rhythm, like someone was trying to say something. Each night, it grew worse. I started looking out the window more often. I'd peek into the darkness, hoping to see something or someone, but the street stayed still. Only shadows danced in the corner of my vision. Each night I questioned everything. Was I losing my mind? Were my neighbors somehow involved? I felt paranoid, but the reality was downright eerie. Finally, I couldn't sleep. I'd lie in bed, tiptoeing on the brink of dread. Were those noises getting louder? Or was I imagining it? There was a knot in my stomach that I couldn't shake. One night, I could have sworn I saw a figure standing there. He just stood staring at me through the basement window. I felt my heart race, and I couldn't move. Maybe it was my imagination again. Then I heard a voice. It seemed to come from right behind me. "Mark!" it rasped. I turned around so fast my breath caught. There was nobody there, just a dark hallway stretching into the unknown. Now, I sit here wondering what it all meant. What was trying to reach out from my basement? What did it want to tell me? The whisper still echoes in my mind, like a haunting melody refusing to leave. Each night, I eye that basement door, waiting for something to emerge. I don't know what I'll do when it does. The next day, I decided I couldn't just ignore the sounds any longer. I summoned every ounce of courage and made my way down the basement stairs. My heart thudded in my chest, and each step felt heavier than the last. The air grew colder as I approached the bottom. I flicked on the light switch, and the bulb flickered weakly before illuminating the cramped space. Dust hung in the air, and the shadows danced across the walls. I felt uneasy. The noises stopped, as if they were waiting for me to turn back. After a few moments of silence, curiosity pushed me further. I scanned the room, searching for something, anything, that could explain what I had been hearing. The walls were bare, and shelves were filled with forgotten items, old paint cans, rusty tools, and a broken chair. But then I noticed something odd. In the corner, partially hidden behind a stack of boxes, lay a small wooden trunk. It looked out of place, like it didn't belong with the other forgotten remnants. I approached it, my heart racing. As I bent down to examine it, the smell of mildew hit me. My hands trembled as I brushed away the dust. The trunk was locked. I could see the rusted metal clasp glued shut with time and neglect. I was about to walk away when I heard that whisper again, clearer this time. "Mark." It sent chills through my spine. The voice came from the trunk. I stepped back, my pulse quickening. Was it just my mind playing tricks again? I shook my head, dismissing the thought. I had to know what was inside that trunk. With renewed determination, I searched for something to pry it open. My hands trembled as I rummaged through the tools on the shelf until I found a flathead screwdriver. Just as I was about to force the clasp open, the whisper returned, louder, more urgent. "Mark! Help me!" Panic gripped me. The voice sounded desperate, like someone was trapped. I froze. I wasn't sure if I should open it. I felt the air grow heavier, thick with something I couldn't define. Before I could second-guess myself, I plunged the screwdriver into the clasp and twisted. It popped open with a sharp click. My breath was shallow, and I hesitated. Slowly, I lifted the trunk's lid. Inside laid a collection of photographs, old and yellowed. They were mostly images of people I didn't recognize. But one photograph caught my attention. It was a picture of a man, his eyes dark and piercing. I felt a jolt of recognition. It was the figure I had seen through the window. That's when I noticed something else. Beneath the photographs was a letter, its edges frayed. My heart raced as I unfolded it. The first line read, "I'm sorry for what I did." Suddenly the basement light flickered and went out. I was plunged into darkness. The whisper turned into frantic cries. "Mark, I need you!" Fear surged through me. I stumbled backward, crashing into the shelves. I could feel a presence in the room, something angry, desperate. I had to get out. I dashed for the stairs, the echo of frantic whispers trailing behind me. What had I just uncovered? Whatever was trapped down there didn't want to stay hidden. I stumbled up the stairs, my breath quickening with each step. The basement door slammed shut behind me, and I leaned against it, heart racing. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around me like a shroud. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the threshold, waiting for the right moment to strike. I had to gather my thoughts. I opened the trunk, my fingers brushing over the photographs and the letter once more. The man in the image haunted me. Who was he? And what had he done? I felt an unexplainable connection, like a thread binding us. Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter. It startled me, yanking me from my thoughts. I quickly grabbed it. It was a message from Sarah, my closest friend. "Hey, are you okay? You sounded weird last night?" I hesitated but replied, "Not really. Can we talk?" Within minutes, she was at my door. I rushed to let her in, needing a familiar face. As soon as she stepped inside, I could see concern plastered across her features. "What happened? You look pale." I explained the whispers, the trunk, the photographs. Her expression morphed from concern to disbelief. "Are you sure you weren't just imagining things?" I wanted to shout that it was real, that I felt something in that basement. But I just nodded. "I need to go back. I have to know what it all means." "Are you nuts?" she replied, eyes wide. "You can't go down there again." But I was resolute. Sarah sighed, realizing I wouldn't be swayed. "Fine, but I'm coming with you." With a flashlight in hand, we made our way back to the basement. Each step felt heavier, weighted down by both my dread and curiosity. I turned on the light, and the bulb flickered again, casting ominous shadows that seemed to stretch towards us. The trunk lay open on the floor, photographs scattered about. I picked up the portrait of the man, showing it to Sarah. "Look at him. It feels like he's staring right at me." She squinted, taking the photo from my hand. "He looks familiar, like I've seen him somewhere." Her words sent a chill through me. But before I could respond, a loud bang echoed from the back corner of the basement, where shadows pooled thicker than anywhere else. We froze, adrenaline spiking in my veins. "What was that?" Sarah whispered. I didn't want to answer. I felt the oppressive weight of something unseen drawing closer. "I don't know. But we should—" Before I could finish my thought, the lights went out again, plunging us into darkness. A rush of cold air swept through the room, swirling around us. I heard it again, a low, raspy voice whispering my name. "Mark. Sarah. Help me." It wasn't just a whisper. It was a plea, one full of anguish. I felt my resolve shatter, and instinct kicked in. "Run!" I shouted. We bolted toward the stairs, the sound of frantic footsteps chasing us. Just as we reached the top, I looked back, and the basement door slammed shut on its own. What was going on? I needed answers. I needed to uncover the truth about the trunk and the man. But now, fear bathed my determination in doubt. Whatever was down there, it was far from finished with us. As soon as we reached the safety of the upstairs hallway, I slammed the basement door shut and pressed my back against it, trying to catch my breath. My heart pounded, and I could feel the sweat pooling at the base of my neck. Sarah stood beside me, her face pale and her breath quick. "Did you hear that voice?" I asked, my voice shaky. She nodded, but then shook her head as if to clear her thoughts. "We can't just ignore this. What if—" The sudden blare of my phone cut her off. I fished it out of my pocket, half expecting another frantic message from Sarah. Instead, I saw an unknown number flashing on the screen. My pulse quickened. "Who is it?" Sarah leaned closer, peering over my shoulder. "Don't know. Should I answer?" I hesitated, but my need for answers weighed heavily on me. I swiped to answer, pressing the phone to my ear. "Hello?" Silence stretched on the other end, thick and heavy. Then a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have opened the trunk." It was cold and distant, as if it were drifting through a long tunnel. "What? Who is this?" I croaked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Find the truth. Before it finds you," the voice hissed before the line went dead. The click of the call ending echoed ominously in the quiet hallway. I lowered the phone, staring at it as if it had just sprouted fangs. "What the hell was that?" I barely managed to croak out. Sarah stepped back, her hands shaking. "Mark, we need to get out of here. This is getting way too weird." But I couldn't let it go. The mystery had a hold on me. I had to figure out what lay in that trunk. "We can't leave now, not after that. We need to know what this all means." Sarah was visibly shaking, but she hesitated. I could see her mind racing. "What if it's dangerous? What if that voice—" "Then we'll face it together," I replied, trying to quell my own fear. I needed her with me. "Let's search the house for more clues. There has to be something more to this." We walked cautiously through the dimly lit rooms, searching for anything that might help us understand. My heart raced each time I opened a closet or peered into shadowy corners. Each creak of the floor sent chills up my spine. In the back of my mind, I recalled the photographs. There was something unnerving in those faces, something that felt like a forgotten nightmare. What if these photos are connected? What if he was someone important? "Important or dangerous?" Sarah replied, scanning the walls closely. Then, everything stopped. I noticed something sticking out from behind a bookshelf in the living room. A small, dusty diary. My breath caught in my throat as I approached it. "That's new," I said, my fingers brushing against the cover. "Mark, wait," Sarah warned, but it was too late. I pulled it free, and as I opened it, I felt all the air rush out of the room. The first page read, "To those who uncover my secrets, beware the shadows." The lights flickered above us. I felt dread settle in my stomach. That's when I heard it again, the faint sound of footsteps echoing from the basement below. I turned to Sarah, and I could see the fear mirrored in her eyes. "Mark, we're not alone," she whispered. Before I could respond, the front door slammed shut. I clenched the diary, my heart pounding harder. The slam of the front door reverberated through the house, filling the silence with apprehension. "What was that?" I whispered, trying to sound braver than I felt. I don't know," Sarah stammered, her eyes darting between the stairs and the dark hallway. "We need to find a way out." "No." The word escaped my lips before I could think. I had to understand what was going on. "We can't just run. We need answers." As much as I wanted to believe I was being brave, I felt the prick of fear digging deeper. The footsteps from the basement echoed again, louder this time, and I instinctively took a step back. "Do you think it's the same person from before?" Sarah's voice was small, but the panic was creeping in. Maybe. Or maybe it's something worse. I felt a strange thrill at the thought, my curiosity battling with the instinct to flee. "We should check it out. If we have to, we can sneak past whoever. Or whatever that is." "Mark, we could die," she pleaded, her hands gripping the edge of the diary. "We might find the truth," I insisted, though even I didn't believe my own words. But the need to confront this fear was overpowering. Maybe if we faced it, it would all make sense. "Fine," she finally agreed, though I could see the trepidation in her eyes. We stole glances at each other, both trying to muster the courage to descend the stairs. I took one last look at the diary, my fingers brushing against the cracked pages. "Let's stick close. If we see anything—" "Run," she finished, and I nodded. We crept towards the stairs, every creak beneath our feet sounding like a drum roll for our doom. With each step, the atmosphere grew heavier. The light flickering from the bulb overhead felt like it was trying to warn us. As we reached the landing, the footsteps echoed again, but this time they stopped. The sudden silence wrapped around us like a thick fog. "What are they doing?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Maybe they're waiting for us," Sarah said, her voice trembling. I forced myself to take a deep breath. "Let's go," I urged. I stepped down, each movement calculated and cautious. I could feel Sarah right behind me, barely making a sound. The air became colder as we approached the door leading to the basement. I was about to reach for the knob when the floorboard creaked again. It was louder this time, and I froze, my stomach dropping. I turned my head slowly to look at Sarah, who looked just as startled. We weren't alone. "Mark?" she whispered, the tension in the air wrapping around us like a tightening noose. Then I noticed it. A shadow flitted along the wall at the bottom of the stairs. It was quick, just a glimpse, but something dark was waiting down there. I knew then we weren't just dealing with a haunting curiosity. I gripped the diary tightly. I had opened a door, and now something was trying to get in. "Mark," Sarah said again, her voice trembling worse. That's when the basement door rattled violently. The door shook again, the rattling sending jolts through my body. I glanced at Sarah, who looked ready to bolt. "Stay close," I whispered, but I hardly believed my own words. I reached for the doorknob, feeling a chill wash over me. It was as if the air was charged with electricity. When I twisted the knob, it didn't budge. The sound of my heartbeat pounded in my ears. "It's locked," I muttered, my voice barely more than a breath. "Then we should go, right?" Sarah pleaded, her eyes wide. "Wait!" I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear anything beyond it. Silence. Then, faintly, a whisper. It was almost too low to catch, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I could feel Sarah's apprehension rise next to me. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone sharp. "There's someone down there," I said slowly, uncertainty creeping in again. "Someone," she repeated, fear written all over her face. Or something. I don't know. I backed away from the door, a bead of sweat forming at my temple. "Maybe we should just—" Before I could finish, the heavy sound of footsteps echoed anew, this time accompanied by a strange scraping noise. Our eyes met, and I could see the doubt and fear in Sarah's gaze, mirroring my own. "We have to see what's going on," I forced myself to say, although part of me screamed against it. "If we don't figure this out, we might not be safe." "What if it's dangerous?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Then we run." I felt a mix of bravado and fear, clenching the diary tighter in my hand. It felt like a talisman of sorts, a connection to whatever secrets haunted this place. With a quick exchange of nervous glances, I felt a surge of adrenaline. "Let's check the window." I motioned for Sarah to follow me swiftly, and we moved toward the small basement window, still trying to remain quiet. Reaching it, I peered out, but the view was obstructed by overgrown bushes and darkness. "We can't escape this way," I sighed, disappointed. That's when I noticed it. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, and I turned sharply. In the space between the walls, a pair of eyes blinked back at me. They were glimmering in the dim light, filled with something I couldn't quite grasp. Curiosity? Malice? "Mark," Sarah whispered, her breath hitching. I could barely take my eyes off the dark presence. "Don't move," I murmured, but I felt rooted in place. The unexplained shadow wiggled, inching closer, revealing more of itself. Whatever it was seemed to thrive on the tension, relishing our fear. Then the eyes vanished, disappearing as quickly as they had come, leaving nothing but a lingering feeling of dread. I turned to Sarah, my heart racing. "What was that?" she gasped. "Something's in our house," I said, my voice laced with urgency. "And it knows we're here." Before I could formulate a plan, the basement door burst open, swinging wide with a loud thud. The room went dark as the light flickered off. I grabbed Sarah's arm, ready to run. But just as I turned to make a dash for the stairs, I heard the unmistakable sound of breathing behind us. I had no choice. I was uncovering a truth I wasn't prepared for. And now, time was running out. The darkness enveloped us like a thick blanket, smothering any sense of safety. I felt the warmth of Sarah's arm pressed against mine, a brief comfort in that moment. I could hear my own breathing, rapid and shallow, but I focused on the sound of something, or someone, shifting in the shadows behind us. "Mark, let's go," Sarah urged, her voice trembling as she pulled me toward the stairs. But my feet felt glued to the ground. I couldn't ignore the instinct warning me to look back. We had to know what it was. My heart raced as I turned slowly, squinting into the murky darkness. The air was heavy, thick with the weight of dread. I strained to see if anything moved, searching for those eyes I had glimpsed just moments before. Nothing. We were alone. Or so I thought. Then I heard it again. A soft rustle, like fabric sliding against itself. My pulse quickened. "Did you hear that?" I hissed, fixing my gaze toward the source of the noise. Sarah peered back, her face pale. "We need to get out of here." But before I could reach for her hand, I caught sight of something. A figure, just a blur in the dimness, slipping between the shelves stacked with boxes. A chill ran through me. "What is that?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Just then, the flickering lights sputtered back on, revealing the cluttered room in washed-out tones. Everything looked normal, but the figure was gone. I stepped forward, adrenaline pushing me. "Mark, please," Sarah squeaked, her grip tightening on my shirt. "Let's just go." But I couldn't turn away, unable to shake off the feeling that something was hidden just beyond our sight. I took a few tentative steps deeper into the space, moving past the piles of old furniture and dusty cardboard boxes. That's when I saw it. A journal, lying open on top of an old trunk. It was tattered, pages yellowed with age. My breath caught. The markings on the page were familiar, rough sketches, and notes scrawled in a hurried scrawl. It was like looking at a script from a horror movie. The words seemed to tell a dark story. I reached out, my fingers brushing the pages, but a sudden loud crash from the far corner startled me. I spun around, heart racing as I scanned the shadows. Nothing. Just the remnants of a broken chair lying on the floor. "We're being watched," Sarah said, her voice trembling. I nodded, acutely aware of our surroundings. Whatever had been lurking felt closer than ever. I squinted into the dim corners, remaining vigilant, terrified that I would miss another flash of movement. "Maybe if we get to the top of the stairs," I murmured, already plotting our escape, when suddenly, the basement door slammed shut. A solid thud resonated, locking us in. "Mark!" Sarah cried, backing up against the wall. "What do we do?" The breathing returned, more distinct now, invasive. I could feel it wrapping around us, and panic surged within me. I had to protect Sarah. "We need to find another way out," I said urgently. Then I noticed something among the shadows. Those eyes again, gleaming, and they were closer now. They watched us intently, like a predator sizing up its next meal. With every ounce of courage, I took a step forward, ready to confront whatever was watching us. But then the breathing stopped. Silence swallowing the room whole. "Where did it go?" I barely choked out. Just as I turned to Sarah, the lights flickered out once more. And in the pitch black, I heard the voice, a raspy whisper echoing through the shadows. "I've been waiting for you." I barely had time to register the whisper before the air thickened with an oppressive heaviness. My mind raced as I tried to figure out who, or what, had been waiting for us. "Mark, we need to move!" Sarah's voice cracked through the jittering silence, pulling me back to the present. I swallowed hard, feeling like I was choking on fear. The basement was a maze, the shadows wrapping around us like fingers, guiding us into the unknown. I turned away from the door, focusing on the dark corners. "Where do we go?" I asked, glancing at the windows that were little more than filthy shadows themselves. Are any of these escape routes? We could try the window, Sarah suggested, her voice low, barely masking her terror. I shook my head. No point in climbing out. We're not even sure what's out there. Just then, the lights flickered back on. I blinked against the sudden brightness and scanned the area, desperate for something, anything, to make sense of this nightmare. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed something on the far wall. A series of markings scratched into the paint surfaced in the light. Symbols or figures I couldn't recognize, layered with dust. It felt wrong. "Mark," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide as she tilted her head toward the wall. "What is that?" Before I could answer, the lights flickered again, this time casting long shadows that danced across the room. I shifted closer to the symbols, drawn in by an inexplicable urge. Each mark seemed to tell a story. But what kind? A knot tightened in my stomach. Suddenly, another crash echoed from the back of the room, this time sounding like something heavy had fallen. My blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" "Go!" Sarah screamed, panic rising in her voice, but I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to stay. Just then, the journal caught my eye again. It lay half open, pages now whispering against each other, like the journal itself was trying to speak. I stepped away from the markings, back to the trunk where it resided, my fingers hovering over the worn pages. "What do you think is in there?" Sarah asked nervously. "We can't leave without knowing what it says," I breathed. Even in the face of danger, curiosity clawed at my logic. "Mark!" But just as I reached for the journal again, everything went dark. Again. We were plunged into a suffocating blackness. I could hardly breathe. Sarah's frantic whisper filled the darkness. "We have to get out, now!" And then, I felt it. A presence brushed past me, like ice racing down my spine. It was there, closer than ever, its breath hot and foul against my neck. "Mark, open your eyes!" Sarah yelled, a note of sheer terror piercing through her voice. Before I could react, the lights flickered back on, and everything changed. The markings on the wall weren't just symbols anymore. They were faces, twisted in eternal screams, gazing at us. And then there was a figure standing at the foot of the stairs. It was not the creature I had feared, but a man. His eyes hollow, mouth stretched into a grin that promised unspeakable things. "Now that you're here," he rasped, voice echoing around us. "There's no way out." My heart sank as I realized it wasn't just my imagination running wild. Whatever this was, it had been waiting for us, and the night was only just beginning. My mind raced, trying to process the man looming in the shadows. Was he real? Or just another figment of this nightmare? I felt Sarah's hand squeeze mine, a desperate plea for reassurance. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, my voice shaky. The grin on his face only widened. "Oh, I think you know why you're here." He took a step forward, and I wanted to retreat. Instead, I stood frozen, the weight of his presence pushing hard against me. "Just let us leave," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking with dread. He laughed softly, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "Leave? But you have only just arrived. The fun is just beginning." With that, he gestured to the walls, where the faces twisted in agony seemed to scream louder, as though they were warning us. A horrible thought seeped into my mind. Are these people?" I asked, taking a hesitant step back, not wanting to take my eyes off him. "Those who tried to leave," he answered, his smile still plastered across his face. "They never understood. This place is a bridge, and tonight you will cross it." "What do you mean by that?" I said, panic rising as I glanced at Sarah, who looked equally terrified. At that moment, the lights flickered yet again, this time illuminating another part of the basement. There, crouched against the wall, I spotted more markings. These were different. They looked like desperate messages, words etched in what seemed like blood. "Help us," one screamed. "Don't trust him," said another. I wanted to scream but remained silent, my throat tightening. I felt the coldness of the basement seep into my bones. "We have to go," I urged, pulling Sarah back toward the shadowed corner of the room. But the figure raised a hand, blocking our escape. And miss the opportunity? I promise you, the truth is much worse than the darkness. The truth? I repeated, unsure of my footing. The more he spoke, the more intrigued I became, which only made my fear grow deeper. Before we could react, the ground beneath us shook with a low rumble. "It's awakening!" he cried, a wild gleam in his hollow eyes. The light started to dim again, shadows swirling as the air throbbed with dread. That's when I saw it. A door, slightly ajar at the far end of the basement, flickering with ominous light. It hadn't been there before, but it pulsed with invitation, promising answers to questions I had hardly begun to form. "Mark, don't!" Sarah warned, pulling me back as the man laughed again, the sound echoing deeper than before. Ignoring her, I took a step toward the door. "Something is in there. I can feel it," I whispered, almost to myself. Was that instinct or madness? "Stay with me," Sarah shouted, but her voice faded into the background as a desperate compulsion took hold of me. I was almost at the door. Whatever lay behind it beckoned, promising clarity. But just as I reached out to push it open, the lights went out once more. And in the darkness, the man's voice whispered, "Welcome to your fate." My heart pounded in my chest, echoing the urgency of the moment. I had a choice: step through the door and uncover the truth, or stick together with Sarah and face whatever he had in store. But there was no time to think clearly. The night was growing darker. I stepped back, my heart hammering as I felt the oppressive darkness envelop us. "We can't do this," I breathed, the uncertainty gnawing at my resolve. But the whispers in the shadows tugged at me, an inexplicable lure urging me onward. "There's something behind that door, Sarah. It's asking for me." But Sarah's grip tightened on my arm. "Let's just find a way out. We can't trust him." Her voice was trembling, yet insistent, filled with a mixture of fear and protectiveness. Moments hung heavy between us, the air thick with an unseen tension. I could still hear the chilling rasp of the man's laughter echoing through the basement, bouncing against the walls like a sinister soundtrack to our dread. His hollow eyes bore into me from the corner where he lingered, and a terrible realization washed over me. He thrived in this darkness, and the more I hesitated, the more powerful he became. I glanced back at the door, yearning for its promise of answers. What if he's right? What if the secret we seek is in there? I couldn't help but feel drawn to it. It was almost a physical pull. "Mark," Sarah protested, desperation creeping into her eyes. "He wants to trap you. This is his game." Just as she spoke, the lights flickered again, and for a fleeting moment I could see the patterns lining the walls, faces marked in pain, countless screams etched in time, all pleading for help. The figure stepped closer, his expression unchanged. "You are all part of this now," he said, his voice unfurling like smoke. "You will have your answers, navigating the shadows of this place. Only then will you understand." Before I could react, a sudden crash echoed from the darkness, reverberating through the basement. The lights flickered once more, then went dead. In that suffocating blackness, an icy sweat broke out on my skin. "Mark!" Sarah's sudden panic pulled me back. "We need to leave, now!" But as I turned to her, I made a choice born out of madness and fear. "No, we can't leave yet, not until I know." I was surprised at my own determination. "I need to know." I snatched up the journal, flipping through its pages frantically. The whispers filled the air, urging me to understand, to become part of whatever unfinished story was unfolding. "If we don't find out what this is about..." I trailed off, unable to voice the fear that gnawed at my insides. The man's laughter rose and fell like a tide, filling the room with a sense of impending climax. "You must choose, boy. Will you face the fate woven into the fabric of this darkness, or will you flee and become another whisper in the shadows?" It felt surreal, the darkness wrapping around me cleanly, the choice crystallizing with stark clarity. I turned back to the door, an inaudible yearning reaching through the fibers of my being. Something deep inside me insisted I continue. I needed to see what lay beyond. "Stay behind me," I murmured to Sarah, even though I knew fear blazed in her eyes. I felt her presence firm at my side as I approached the door, heart racing, breath shallow. I pushed the door open, the hinges creaking in protest, revealing a small, dimly lit room beyond. Walls lined with the same agonized faces I had seen before. But there was something else. A mirror sat against the wall, clouded and cracked, and reflected only darkness. Circling it, I could feel something thrumming in the air. It whispered secrets, echoes of the restless spirits trapped within. Help us. Save us. Their sorrow seeped into my bones, and dread clawed at my heart. Mark, we can't stay here. Sarah tugged at my arm, dragging me away from the mirror. The figure lingered just outside the door, a twisted grin illuminated by the low light. You've entered my world, boy. Understand now. Knowledge and madness dance on the same edge. Choose your next step wisely. With a flick of my wrist, I shut the door, but I could still hear the voices, their pleas mingling with my thoughts. This isn't what I wanted, I murmured more to myself than anyone. The pressure of the truth settled heavily on my shoulders, its weight nearly unbearable. Suddenly, everything snapped into chaotic motion. The air thickened, the lights flickered outrageously, the voices crescendoed into a wall of sound, and in one chilling moment, the man lunged toward us, his form shifting and distorting into something unfathomably dark. "Now you will face your fears!" he bellowed, as shadows curled around him. With a surge of adrenaline, I grabbed Sarah's hand, urging her to follow me as I sprinted toward the staircase. "We have to get out! Whatever knowledge this place holds isn't worth our lives." Together, we barreled up the stairs, each step echoed by the haunting whispers of those trapped below. I felt the oppressive weight of darkness pursue us, a malevolent force reaching for my back, and I nearly stumbled in my haste. Will we make it out alive? We reached the front door, throwing it open, bursting into the world outside filled with moonlight. A stark, welcomed contrast to the terror we had just fled. We stumbled onto the street, trailing each other like relay runners, breathless and shaken. Yet, as the night cloaked us once more, I paused to glance back. The house loomed behind me, shadowy tendrils reaching out like a specter. But now the mysterious figure stood at the door, motionless. In the distance, I heard laughter, echoing through the silence, lingering like an unanswered question. As we ran, the terror subsided, but a lingering dread coiled around my heart. I still think about what we left behind. The man, the whispers. Were they real? Or had it all been a fabrication of fear fusing with the mind? Even now, I try not to think about it. The unknown still haunts me like the distant echoes of voices, yet I can't shake the feeling that we've only scratched the surface of something deeper. I moved to a different city, away from that quiet suburb, hoping to find solace. But occasionally, at night, I think I hear whispers calling my name, just faintly. I guess I'll never know if it was all real, or if the shadows still linger, waiting for my return.